So in terms of this slide, look, it takes you through where we were before the reset, the movements through the reset right down to the variance and and I think, Catherine, if we go now to...
Sorry, so if we're comparing with the reset, where are our actuals? That was 25 actuals and expected for this year, the forecast for this year. Was the reset anticipated in the long-term plan? No, I think is the answer. No. So therefore the long-term plan, if we're actually looking at impact of the reset, the long-term plan isn't actually all that relevant, but the actuals of 24-25 and forecast 25-26 are relevant. So they should be part of our comparison when we're looking at these, please.
So if we just look at the 2027 draft annual plan column, which is the 1278 in terms of FTE. And if we just shrink that down a little bit now, Catherine.
And so just for comparatives, that's the equivalent of the 1. So that's including city ops?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's equivalent to 1358 at the end of December. And the numbers you sent us yesterday. So that's quite a good big reduction on current year.
That's correct, yeah. So that is taking into account those who have now left the organisation, working out their notice periods through Reset 1, Reset 2, and a number of vacant roles that have been removed to come down to that FTE of 1278. And obviously there is a variance. The variance is made up of bringing in 53 city ops for this financial year. It also includes 18 new FTE for the libraries. So that's relating to the new Central City Library. Some of them will only have a period of not the full year in this budget for that first FY27 budget as they come on stream with the library opening. Other factors that make up that 8 million variance are the movements, obviously, which we budget for every year. Not all our staff are up to that 100% midpoint, so that's had to be factored in as well. There's also market movement of 3.5 factored in there. Another factor is the 3 million reduction of where our capitalisation for some of our teams, including digital, was removed. So that's had a negative impact on the salary budget. It does, however, include some recharges through the Waters program, which, Catherine, you might be better to talk to that.
Can I just, for Tuesday, can we please have this table with actuals 24-25 and forecast 25-26? Because for me, comparing next year's draft budget with the long-term plan is not that relevant, because we have said we wanted a reset, we had a reset, we should be seeing the results of that reset. According to my numbers and the numbers that were sent, the 1269 FTEs is about 90 people less than December 2025 from HR, and therefore there should be quite a big reduction in salary costs from this current year and last year, which would be great to be able to see, but comparing against the LTP to me is not all that relevant.
Okay, so yeah, you are right, there was about a $12 million reduction through the reset. However, there were other factors which I've just explained in terms of the new tranche of city ops, the new FTEs for the libraries, a different methodology with the, I guess, the salary savings target.
And that's fine. I would just like to see it compared to actuals rather than LTP, please. And that's an action thing.
Yeah, so just one of the larger attachments, and it's very awkward to try and share it, that you will have both in what Craig sent and what is in the annual plan already, is that sort of journey. It isn't about actuals, but it is about how has it changed from what we budgeted, what we had in 26 draft. We did a reset, and then City Ops came in, and they're shown in those columns. So if you're wanting to track it both for salary cost and for FTE, they are in that attachment with the columns there, and we're happy to take any questions next week on those two diagrams as well, because they do tell a story of people leaving and the costs.
And I think, you know, this is, probably more detail than I'll need to look at from a governance perspective, but if I'm looking at a reduction in 90 people or 90 roles, we should be able to see a salary change there, but I just can't see it in that table because it's not reported. Councillor Crowther.
Can you please clarify the number? Like we've got the 1,269 million and going to 1,278 for the cost of the FTEs.
No, that's actual FTEs, isn't it?
That's actual. Oh, okay, it's got a million. Okay, right. Okay, well, if that's the case, are we saying, because there's another spreadsheet that wouldn't be visible, but it's the one Jen's talking about, I think, which is, it's got the 1,278 is the FTE count in 31st December. Okay, so then the 1,278 you're saying is the number, and that will be exactly the same forecast at the end of June 2027, is that right?
So the report you received through Jen is actuals as at 30, the end of December. So that is different to what we are looking at today, which is purely for what we're setting for the budget for the next annual plan year.
I guess that's my point, is like that 1,278 number, which is the actual on the 31st of December, is that just a coincidence? It's the same number, in which case, is that the number that is the average for the whole of the financial year from 1st July to 30th of June? In which case, it seems pretty safe to say that, give or take, that we're talking about a static number of staff. So no increase, no decrease, and the percentage increase though, and this is what I'm trying to get at, is that we've got a 10% increase because there's various factors of churn. But I think that's the issue that I think we have to get our heads around, is that we're static, but we've got a very, very big increase in costs. And I think, to me, this whole issue, like with this capitalised salaries and things, it'd be really good to sort of tease that apart a little bit and understand what's going to happen the following year, because if that keeps going on, then we have to make a different decision this year. We know we do because of the rates cap. But we don't quite have, or I don't have visibility of what's going to happen with those capitalised salaries. Was that just a little blip this year, or is this going to be year by year by year? All the budgets are just so far out with capitalised salaries that we're going to be constantly having big increases.
There were some things that should have been changed in the budget that weren't, and that was particularly the capitalised, the way the charging for digital staff working on projects that then became operational expenditure. It wasn't fixed in the budget, and so it appeared in that capitalisation number and understated it. And there were offsets in consultants and things like that, so it's not like it overstated the whole story, but it makes it a little bit more confusing in here. And we have asked the staff to be very clear about the number of projects that people are able to capitalise against and a reasonable expectation, and we are monitoring performance of activities against those targets, so it should be tighter.
We've got a hand up in the Rotorua.
Yeah, I just had a couple of, firstly, I'll have a question. I'm just trying to understand, Jan, around what you sort of specified. So if we look at the 2026 draft AP before reset, we had 1326. That went down to, if we're looking at the draft AP, which is 1278. If we go round numbers, we went down 100 positions, went down to 1226, and then we added the 53. That takes us basically up to that 1278, the 53, sorry, from the city ops. So am I just correct in that sort of assumption, the reduction of 100 roles, but then adding in the 53, that sort of fairly well balances?
That is correct, yeah. So it wasn't just 53 city ops, we've also got the 18 new library roles for the city centre library. Plus a few
so there must have been some further reduction somewhere
as well.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. That was just a clarification point for me, to try to balance those numbers. I guess just from all this discussion, yeah, I feel like we're going a little bit in the wrong direction. If we actually break this down and we take a high level view, next week we're going to set some direction, but the direction to me is high level direction. We want a 7.5% rates rise. We want waters in or out, whatever we decide. We want a capital program of 400 million. Let's get the big rocks that we need that make big significant changes to the budgets. But we're sort of, we need to make these decisions. We need to do this. We need to do that. We don't. We've got to sign off a budget at the end of June. We've got to have a document ready for the public probably by the beginning of May. So we've got 3 months from now until then to actually get this right and get something that makes a lot of sense. I'm still very keen to add in probably a 2% debt reduction levy. So it's actually the actual number is 9.5% rates rise. But we're trying to force the issue, I believe, and I'm just not sure that we need to. And we just can simplify things. We need a document by the beginning of May that we can go out and engage with our community on. We need to sign it off by the end of June. So let's not try to make a rush decision now or force the issue. We can sit down, we can have a real good conversation. If we know the envelope is 400 million for capital, we can sit down and we can go through the detail, we can get into the projects, we can decide, where or where not these things are. But I just feel like we're trying to force things when we don't need to be doing that. And the space of 3 months is going to give us so much more clarity if we set that sort of direction, but then we have that time to actually do it properly. And I think we can achieve what we all want out of this, rather than now trying to nitpick over this, or we need to do that, or there seems to be a little bit of pressure that we need to make decisions. Well, yeah, again, I think there is some things that we need to give some direction on, and we'll have an opportunity to make some key decisions. But let's simplify it and actually say these are the key things we need to know as staff, and we will make those decisions next week at a council meeting, which then gives you some certainty. And we do have the time to actually get into this properly, but we're not going to solve it all today. And if we do try to solve it all today, I think we're going to end up with all being disappointed with where we end up. But that's just my comment.
Well said.
So,
I think the only thing is that if we are consulting, then that 3 months is cut down by a month, if not a little bit more than that. Okay, so we're going to have a few extra columns. It's probably also sensible. Let's put that extra 27, is it, on the library as they are allowable. Then we probably should put that number in that table, because we're acknowledging that that's going to happen, or at least we're budgeting for that to happen.
I guess for me, I look at the position we're in, and we've got, uncertainties around Moa, we've got other issues we're having to deal with, and we've got this looming rates cap, and we've got locked-in capital investment, et cetera, and then we're saying we're still sticking to the plan for 18 extra staff in the library. Now, I understand we've committed to the library, that's no problem. I understand that we want to do well in that library community hub, and we need staff to be able to fulfil that. But I look at it, and having seen some of the design changes and plans and trying to follow that process all the way through, I think 18 is just too many people to commit to, because once we get them in there, it'll be, in my view, hard to kind of reverse out. And I think we need to start thinking, is that the right amount of OPEX for that space? Can we utilise that space in some other way that would require fewer staff there, that would still offer something to our community and offer some value from that building? And in the long term, we could definitely have a different scenario, but we have to start getting realistic about this, because if we don't bite some bullets, then it's just going to spiral out of control, and then we're going to have to do some terrible things in a couple of years' time to slash, and I do not want to be in that position. And one of the easy things to do, which doesn't hurt anybody in the organisation, is to actually not put people into new roles that we've created to fill up a building space. We could actually look at not doing that on the grounds that we just need to buy a bit of time and make sure that we've got a plan to get under that rates cap.
I think well said, and I think that's why I would like, if there's a draft coming to us that's got 18 extra staff for library, let's be transparent about it, and then we can debate whether it stays in or not.
Just another comment to that. That is for FY27. There is more planned for FY28, which you haven't, that haven't been identified.
Which I think is
Which
Councillor
will be
Crowther's
part of the
concern, that
museum.
we don't want to start because we do tend to come in and sorry, the ball's already rolling. You signed that off a couple of years ago by not complaining about it, or not kicking it off. So I think it's sensible that we absolutely look at this up front so that it doesn't become committed without us realising it.
Yeah, and I think this should be part of a wider level of service conversation citywide about the services we deliver and where we deliver them from and what level. So I think it's a bit simplistic to focus on one particular thing when actually citywide it feels like we're delivering services beyond our means across a whole range of activities.
Just quick response though, is the reason we're focusing on that is what's under our control right now in an annual plan. Like, I agree, I'd love to do, I think we asked for zero-based budgeting, Mahe and Jen have asked for, but we can't do that. So therefore, when we see plus 18 for a library, and we're talking about cutting library costs, and we're talking about charging for library fees, increasing user fees, I think we're just going in opposite direction. So it's not targeting libraries, but it's saying, if we were doing the same thing for, sports maintenance and adding a whole lot of new staff, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. Do we really want to add people right now to this organisation consciously when we may not need them?
I think from our perspective, it would be really useful to have a list of all of these things that you'd like to have some conversations from. So today you've identified Belt Barns, and we had noted that previously, and it's just a timing issue. We have had an informal session where you've identified some things, and we've created a list of all of those, and we were going to work through them progressively. You're now talking about library, which is fine. So if we can get the complete list of the topics, budget items that you would like to have, further conversations, further information, then we can make sure that they're built in. If you make a call that you're not consulting and you're going to a May Day, then we can create a work program over the next couple of months that systematically goes through all of those issues, so that you can then, if you are basically approving an envelope, which I think is what Mahe is suggesting, then we can do those more detailed sessions, and then you can make choices within that envelope. So, but having that feedback on what elements you want to focus your discussions on is really helpful.
And I think it's whether we might not have time for workshops, but we can have information. So I would like this table with library in there separately, with actuals and forecast for this year, rather than the draft AP, what was approved in the annual plan. And I think renewals is also part of your what we've asked for some better information on. Hopefully that's already on your list. So spreadsheets that break that down, that we've got time to reflect on and come back if we need a workshop, are really useful as well. But at the end of the day, we are trying to be governors, trying to say this is what we need to, what are we anticipating going forward, and we will absolutely then pass on that accountability to deliver under those numbers to our CEO beside me. So, and I'm sure that Marty is anticipating that that's going to be part of his role from the discussions we're having. So, thank you, Jan. Where are we going next? So we are now going into public excluded.